Dis, the city of iron, the city of pain, the second layer of the 9 hells of Beator, ruled by the Archduke Dispater. The sky is cloudless and smoky-hued green, occasionally lit up by flickers of lightning and faint thunder. The layer's main feature is the city of Dis. The city is built entirely of iron. The buildings, the streets, all the infrastructure is made out of this metal. Dominating the view of the city is the Palace of Dispater, looming over everything and everyone within Dis. Dis is an infernal metropolis. Despite its hostile environment, it acts as a gathering place for travelers from all over the multiverse to trade goods and information, although you'd have to be insane to stay here long. Now let's talk about what the layer is actually like. In 1st edition, the second layer of hell is described as being largely flat with the occasional hill or tor rising out of the plains that stretch for thousands of miles. Black and cold waters of stagnant rivers and streams stretch across the plain, radiating out from the moat surrounding the city of Dis. The city itself sits on an island in the center of a lake where the rivers meet. The waters are poisoned and give off odoriferous vapors, rising from the waters as smoky wisps or plumes. The plains outside the city are dominated by ceaseless, fierce winds, tumbling many lemures helplessly through the air. There is at least a 10% chance each minute that a land-based traveler trying to stand or move against the wind will be swept off his or her feet. This is increased to a 20% chance if mounted or standing high on an exposed position. These constantly changing strong winds make it difficult to fly here and slow down flying creatures significantly. The Arenyes, who are native to this layer and are used to these winds, are unaffected by this and can fly normally. Pillars of stone are said to move about in the rolling hills of Dis, but nothing definite is known of these. Between the city and the hills lie the vast estates held in fief by Dispater's vassals. The city of Dis is described as being, quote, a dismal place of airy-riddled towers, zombies, garbage-choked streets alive with rot grubs, and a black pudding here and there, and iron-barred cells full of chains and torture implements, end quote. 2nd edition describes Dis as having spurs of blackened iron jutting out of the blasted plains around the city, getting thicker the closer you get to the city until they become actual walls. Roads, paved with skulls of the damned, wind among the ever-thickening spurs into the city. Arriving in the city is abrupt and disorienting. One minute you're walking along the roads well outside the city, and then you round an iron escarpment, and all of a sudden you are surrounded by crowds of people and iron structures. If you look behind you, you are far into the town, and the city appears to extend forever, with the streets vanishing into the horizon. Scholars speculate if there is even a difference between Dis the city and Dis the layer, since the city seems infinite to those inside of it. But to those outside it, it is ringed by great jagged mountains, with expansive plains between them and the city. The blackened iron walls of Dis smoke with intense heat, burning wounds into those that brush against them. The streets scorch your feet unless wearing heavy boot leather. Anyone who touches this hot metal suffers 1d6 points of damage. There are places designed for non-devil travelers to the city. Such places have hangings on the walls and carpets on the floors to protect visitors from the scorching heat, but Dis is still a very uncomfortable place to be. Petitioner work crews, watched over by Abishai perched on the walls, are put to work in the city as a form of torture. Some of the dead are lemures at Nuparebos, while others are shades who have been granted memories of their past lives so that they can more fully appreciate the excruciating torment they're undergoing. These crews are constantly tearing down buildings, erecting new buildings, ripping up roads, and paving new roads, which makes the city an ever-changing maze that is difficult to navigate. They scream and burn as they touch the hot iron without tools or protection, and then heal from their wounds so that they do not die and can continue to suffer. Many times they might be repaving a road that a different crew just paved moments ago. The work is pointless and illogical, but that's what Dispater wishes. Maybe the only purpose is to simply punish the damned. 3rd edition's description is pretty similar to 2nd edition. It says that the road to Dis is made out of broken skulls, and eventually, as you get closer to the city, the skulls turn into spurs of hot iron. Entering Dis is always sudden and seems to be a disorienting break in reality. The city is described as maze-like, and no two maps of Dis are ever the same, because its configuration is constantly changing. Although work crews of Least Devils are always tearing down structures and building new ones, the layout of Dis changes faster than any worker could possibly arrange, so their work is indiscernible and meaningless. Where 1st edition made no mention of the iron being hot or its color, and 2nd edition describes the iron structures of Dis as being hot, but black in color, 3rd edition describes the metal metropolis as red glowing buildings, stating that every iron wall glows with heat. Touching any hot surface also deals 1d6 fire damage, just like in the previous edition. 4th edition. Since in 4th edition's cosmology, Beator is planet-shaped, all of the layers beneath the first are described as giant caverns. The second layer of Dis is a cavern more than 100 miles wide and easily 10 miles tall. The jagged mountains and sheer ravines break up its floor, and it is illuminated by the ruddy glow of sluggish lava streams and red-hot iron. The road to Dis is exactly 20 miles and littered with skulls, but not paved with them. The city of Dis sprawls over miles of steep hillsides, as opposed to the flat plain of previous editions. The iron structures are still hot to the touch and can harm you, like in 2nd and 3rd edition, but no mechanical information is given on how much damage you take. 5th edition describes Dis as being, quote, a labyrinth of canyons wedged between sheer mountains rich with iron ore. Iron roads span and wind through the canyons, watched over by iron fortresses perched atop jagged pinnacles. Dispater's crimson throne stands in the heart of the iron city of Dis, a hideous metropolis that is the largest in the 9 hells, end quote. We only get a few paragraphs on Dis in 5th edition, and it doesn't mention if the iron is hot and the roads outside the city are paved with iron instead of skulls. So in summary, the city of Dis is a huge city made out of iron where Dispater rules. In 1st and 2nd editions, it is clear that there exists more to the layer than the city. In 1st edition, there are thousands of miles of plains outside the city, and in 2nd edition, there are also plains, but eventually they reach a ring of mountains no one has ever gone past, essentially acting as the border of the layer. In 3rd, 4th, and 5th edition, these mountains jut up directly against the city, with nothing in between them. So outside the city, there really isn't much other than some cliffs and caves, although 5th edition added the lore that these mountains are filled with iron mines, and Dis manufactures weapons for hell. The iron that makes up the entirety of the city of Dis is scorching hot to the touch in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th edition. I could find no references to this in 1st and 5th edition. Now let's talk about the one who rules Dis, the Lord of the Second, Dispater. Dispater is a master strategist, an expert in intrigue, and the most carefully calculating of all the archdevils. To defeat Dispater would be to outsmart one of the oldest and most clever beings in reality. He is deeply paranoid and untrusting of everyone, making his own personal safety his top priority. He never leaves his iron tower unless commanded to do so by Asmodeus, and while inside it he is invulnerable. He uses his tremendous spy network to watch over anyone who might threaten him, and is so convinced his ranks are filled with traitors, he has half of his devils spying on the other half, and vice versa. He has at least 9 different backup plans and escape routes at all times. Despite his paranoia, Dispater always keeps a veneer of calm, gentlemanly manners. He never shows anger or contempt, making him all the more charming and dangerous. Since the Reckoning, Dispater has been very careful about his political stances. He knows he was lucky to retain his lordship over Dis and will require considerable persuasion to defy Asmodeus again. In 3rd edition, Glazia's overthrow of Malagard, seemingly with her father's collusion, had the already overcautious Dispater acting even more careful. In 5th edition, he is somehow in a higher state of paranoia, secluding himself in the libraries of his Iron Tower since Zariel's rise to power. Titavilus is preying on Dispater's paranoia and has convinced them almost every archdevil, including Asmodeus, is scheming to overthrow him. 5th edition also describes him as being the arms manufacturer of Hell, and possibly the greatest weapon supplier in all of the planes. He oversees large mining and smelting operations that continuously churn out weapons and armor to supply the legions of devils in the Blood War. 5th edition also added the lore that he is obsessed with knowledge and secrets. Every deal he makes, every soul he trades, anything he does or orders is measured in terms of the knowledge it contains and the secrets that can be gleaned from it. He yearns to solve every mystery of the multiverse. To Dispater, all of reality is a contest played out under secret rules. If he can learn these rules, he could rise to the top of the infernal hierarchy and eventually rule all the planes. To quote Dispater himself, "The cosmos is a grand game. He who knows its rules best wins the prize." Dispater is allied with Mephistopheles, and he is enemies of Beelzebul. Mainly because Beelzebub is not a true Batizu, but a fallen Archon, but only a devil as old as Dispater would care about such a thing. Dispater's appearance is of a 7-foot-tall, dark-haired humanoid. He resembled a human, but with small horns, a pointed tail, and a cloven left hoof. His skin is cold to the touch and feels like metal, and it resists blows like metal as well. Dispater is always dressed in regal finery and carries his rod as a badge of office. Dispater wields a 3-foot-long rod made out of Tantalhor in 1st edition, which was an almost unbreakable metal only found in the Nine Hells. It was made out of iron and lead in 2nd edition, and it was made out of adamantine in 4th edition. It is said to have been enchanted at the same time as the Iron Tower. In 1st and 2nd edition, the rod is a weapon of +3 enchantment, and also acts as a rod of rulership and a double-strength staff of striking, inflicting 4d6 damage on hit. In 3rd edition, it is a +6 mace that acts like a rod of rulership and can smite good 3 times a day. In 4th edition, it is a +6 mace that dazes people and spews acid. Also in 3rd edition, he had a magic iron shield. In 5th edition, he has crafted an impenetrable suit of adamantine armor imbued with charms to nullify spells used against him and keep him safe anywhere, including hostile environments. No one can guess all its features since he crafted it using methods only he has mastered. Dispater is conservative and careful. In combat, he is always thinking defensively. He conjures walls made of fire in 2nd edition or iron in 3rd and 4th edition to keep foes at bay while he summons assistance. In 3rd edition, his touch can turn creatures to iron and also corrode anything made out of metal. Any metal weapon that successfully lands on him and any creature previously turned to iron he touches instantly crumbles into pieces, becoming completely useless. In 1st, 3rd, and 4th edition, he had a fear aura like many other devils. In 2nd edition, it is said that while within his Iron Tower, Dispater is invincible. Attacks simply phase through him and spells used against him fizzle out. 5th edition is the only edition where Dispater isn't statted out. However, I got bored and I made a 5th edition stat block for him if you want to check the link out in the description. I will warn you though, he's basically impossible to kill, and Dispater's really not someone your players should be fighting, so the stat block's kinda useless in that sense, but it was fun to make if you want to look through it. Dispater's Vassals. 1st edition goes into great detail on the various dukes and vassals under Dispater's rule. I'm gonna do my best to pronounce these right, but a lot of these are either Hebrew or just like old biblical demon names, or they're completely made up, so just bear with me here. So in 1st edition, he had the following vassals underneath him. Beatru, his strongest duke, who commanded 70 companies of Erinyes. He resembles a muscular humanoid with shining scarlet skin and lustrous black hooves, horns, and wings. He wields a huge +3 two-handed sword in combat and can normally be found within Dispater's palace. Lilith, Dispater's consort and prime minister. She is old and weak, but offers an intricate spy network that is second only to that of Asmodeus. Lilith resembles a plump human woman of middle age with copper-colored hair, orange-red skin, and bright green eyes. She also had small orange-red horns, a forked tail, wings, long red nails, and delicate cloven black hooves in place of feet. Biffant, Dispater's provost who runs and commands the staff of the palace itself. He is normally found in the palace and is never without 2 messenger Erinyes and 6 servant spine devils. He usually does not fight, but is crafty and plans far in the future. Biffant and Lilith are said to be very friendly, closer in mutual understanding and cooperation, some say, than Lilith and Dispater himself. He appears as a portly humanoid devil, some 6 feet tall, with blood-red skin, a small tufted tail, and a pair of inward hooked horns, but he lacked the wings often seen on devils. His eyes lacked pupils or whites, being only a blue-green hue, and he was always smiling. Baelzephon, a pit fiend who orders and administers Dispater's armies and vassals. In 2nd edition, she is said to be a member of the Dark Eight, the supply master of Beator. It is unclear if she is still in Dis serving Dispater in 2nd edition. Furcus, a pit fiend who commands 12 companies of bearded devils and boasts sizable holdings in the estates of Dis. Furcus is also a member of the Dark Eight, the Minister of Mortal Relations. The lore of the Dark Eight did not exist in 1st edition, and so when they created it for 2nd edition, they used names of existing pit fiend generals to fill its ranks. It is unclear if this means that Furcus and Baelsafon still have estates in Dis and serve Dispater, or if they retconned that out when introducing the Dark Eight. Bel. Although in every other edition, the pit fiend Bel lives in Avernus and is either ruling it in the case of 2nd, 3rd, and 4th edition, or second in command of Avernus in the case of 5th edition, but in 1st edition, Bel is a vassal to Dispater. He is in charge of the Iron Guard, Dispater's personal team of bodyguards consisting of 3 companies of Mela branches. Ariok, the Iron Avenger. He punishes those who displease Dispater and acts as his bodyguard when he leaves the Iron Citadel. He is humanoid in form with a crocodilian head and lion-like mane. His skin is purple on his head and shoulders, and a dark wine red on the rest of his body. Ariok has massive bat-like wings, a forked tail, and cloven hooves in place of feet. He is 9 feet tall and muscular in build. In combat, he wields a massive 20-foot-long, double-ended +1 halberd made of adamantite. Elosir, a duke who commanded 36 companies of Erinyes and often wrote a nightmare about his estates or into battle. He was 7 foot tall and had a humanoid body with red gold skin and a leonine head. His eyes had a fiery flash that could blind anyone who met his gaze, but devils were immune. Although he doesn't have wings, Elosir can use magic to fly, allowing him to fight alongside the Erinyes he commands. Merodach, a duke who commands 21 Homotula companies. He has the body of a wolf, 2 huge long horns on his head, large feathered wings, and a prehensile serpentine tail. He was a clumsy flyer and preferred to run on all 4s. Titavilis is the nuncio for Dispater. He is infamous for his ability to twist words, to use words to confuse those using words. He is not strong but very clever. He possesses a silver sword of wounding, but he normally uses his other powers. He knows many spells that can charm or dominate, spells that confuse or cause memory loss, and spells that create illusions. He appears very similar to a satyr, but more human-like in appearance, save for his bat-like wings. 2nd edition only says that he has many dukes, and his most notable is Titavilis, his personal messenger and herald. So where in 1st edition all his dukes were important for different reasons, 2nd edition is when they started putting a focus on Titavilis and elevating his importance within Dispater's court. 3rd edition mentions some of the dukes from 1st edition by name, but gives no detail, except for saying that Titavilis is being heavily relied on by Dispater, putting him in charge of far worthier dukes. Anyone who wants to speak to Dispater must go through Titavilis. 3rd edition also adds 2 new servants of Dispater. It says that Dispater has Erinyes messengers. The chief of all his Erinyes servants is Ustahirinja, a hideously scarred disciple. She is fiercely loyal to Dispater and personally slew 3 Erinyes under her that she discovered were actually spies for Beelzebul. And then Talos, an iron golem that guards the Iron Tower. 5th edition mentions no dukes of Dispater except for Titavilis, and it expands on his lore. It states that Dispater is extremely paranoid of being overthrown and only trusts Titavilis. Titavilis is not a powerful or even a worthy devil, but he knows just what to say and when to say it to please Dispater, and that's how he has reached his position. Titavilis preys on Dispater's paranoia and has convinced him even Asmodeus ranks among the many trying to overthrow him. This has caused Dispater to seclude himself in his Iron Tower, leaving most day-to-day business in the hands of Titavilis. It is unknown if any message sent to Dispater is ever actually received by the Archdevil himself. Some say Titavilis is the one truly ruling Dis these days. Inhabitants. In 1st edition, Erinyes guard the city, and most of Dispater's dukes commanded companies of Erinyes. They patrol within and around the city, analyzing intruders to learn their numbers and appearance. Then when they attack, they make sure to always send a messenger to inform the pit fiend Baelsafon, Dispater himself, or one of the Iron Guard. They will pass by other groups of Erinyes on their way back, informing them of the intruders in passing, so that said intruders will be subjected to more attacks by odd bands of Erinyes before any organized force is dispatched from the Iron City. They will normally try not to kill the intruders if they can, for Dispater is always on the lookout for beings or items that he can use to maintain or improve his own position, and no Erinyes wants to be the devil that invokes his wrath by destroying something he would like to have used. Wild Arinys and Hellcats can also be encountered in the plains far outside the city. In addition to the many Arinys that protect the city, the other Batazu most commonly found in Dis are Lemures, Nuparibos, Abishai, Imps, and Spine Devils. You also have the Iron Guard, Dispater's personal bodyguards consisting of 3 companies of Horn Devils. Outside of the Batazu, you could find Mephits, Achairi, Stinch Cows, and Rakshasas working within the estates of the Dukes of Dis. Rakshasas sometimes achieve positions of responsibility in a duke's household or retinue, but are always watched closely, for they are too self-willed and ambitious to be trusted servants. You of course have planar travelers, coming to the Infernal City to buy or sell questionable wares, or hire a bloodthirsty band of mercenaries for work that only a devil could love. In 3rd edition, you had something called the Spectres of Dis. These are souls who realized how horrible their acts in life were too late. Just as they arrive in hell, they repent their misdeeds. Had they done this moments earlier before they came to hell, they might have been given a second chance, but now they face eternal doom. This spiritual condition is called anagnorisis. Because these souls can empathize with their victims and fully understand the consequences of their actions, they are converted to spectral form to lament them until the end of time. This special form of suffering creates a tremendous amount of divine energy that is collected by a system of metal rods erected on the towers and bridges of Dis. Only Dispater knows how to utilize specters this way, and he keeps that information a tight secret. The other archdukes covet this knowledge and send spies to steal it. Locations. Dispater's Palace. So in 1st edition, well, I'm just gonna quote directly from Dragon Magazine here because Ed Greenwood can word it better than I ever could. So in 1st edition, Dispater's Palace is described as this, quote, "The island the city sits on rises sharply in elevation toward the center, and on this rocky knob is the infernally grand palace of Dispater, many-towered and terrible. It is fashioned of stone, unlike the rest of the city, and furnished with iron, carved bone, and stone. Its terraced approaches are adorned with trees fashioned of iron. The palace is off limits to those without a reason for being there, and Arinys can be seen frequently flitting in and out of the palace's high, arched windows, presumably to give or receive information. There are many caverns beneath the palace, known as the Pits of Dis, where prisoners live in unmanacled savagery, fighting for the edible garbage that falls into their lightless realm down shafts from the palace above." End quote. In 2nd edition, Dis's palace is given a name, the Iron Tower, and it is constructed of iron instead of stone. Sorta. In the Plains of Law box set, it says that the Iron Tower is made out of iron and lead, but in the Planescape campaign setting box set, it says it's made of lead and stone. Given the name of Iron Tower though, I think assuming that it's made out of iron would be correct, so I would go with the first one from the Plains of Law box set. It rises taller than anything else in the city, and no matter where you are, it always appears to be just beyond the next row of buildings. Batazu can simply teleport to the tower, but others could trek for days and never reach it. The Iron Tower's shape and layout is constantly changing on Dispater's whim. One minute, it's a squat building of ponderous bulk. The next, it's a slender tower shooting toward Avernus. The tower is 999 miles high, and its interior has no corridors or doorways to enter rooms. Each room would be isolated, sometimes with miles of solid iron between it and the next room. Batazu could simply teleport to the room they want to go to, because back in 2nd edition, all devils could teleport without error at will, before the Yugalos took this power from them. Non-devil visitors to the Iron Tower had to make use of the Flower of Holes, an item specifically made and given to visitors. It is a rubbery black flower, each petal grown from the distilled spirit of a petitioner unfit for the work crews, with the symbol of a room marked on each one. Plucking the petal and placing it on the ground made a hole, similar to that of a portable hole, but hopping in the hole took you to the corresponding room. In 3rd edition, other than the added description of it always being black, ugly, and surrounded by a wreath of black smoke, the Iron Tower's exterior has the same characteristics as in 2nd edition, almost verbatim. However, its interior is a little bit different. It is described as looking much like the city. His throne room is a vast, square vault which always seems to be one corridor away to those who do not know the secret of moving directly into it. Some say that a creature entering his inner sanctum finds themselves in an even larger city, much further from Dispater than before. In 4th edition, the Iron Tower hangs from a gigantic stalactite protruding from the cavernous roof of the 2nd layer of Hell. The Garden of Delights. In 2nd edition, the Garden of Delights is described as an oasis behind tall sandstone walls. Beautiful women greet you at the doors and charge an exorbitant fee. It is safe from the painfully hot iron walls and streets. Refreshing beverages, scrumptious meals, and pleasures of the flesh are readily available here. However, this is all an illusion being made by a powerful Ifrit putting in its 1001 days of service. You are in fact eating and drinking nothing, but this does not become apparent until you leave the garden. While inside, you do not notice and may have starved to death due to the illusion of grand feasts and rivers of wine. 3rd edition expands upon this, stating that while there used to be only one Ifrit managing it, it was so successful at collecting souls that now Hell pays a whole staff of the Ifrit puppet masters to maintain it. Imps in human form mingle among the guests, attempting to corrupt those that seem corruptible and leaving the rest to die of thirst and starvation. Anyone who concentrates on their surroundings without interruption for 1 minute can attempt a DC 25 will save to determine that it is all fake, but imps try to distract those who seem to be focusing on the environment too intently. Even those who know it's an illusion find it too intoxicatingly pleasant to leave and require a DC 30 will save to successfully exit. This can only be attempted once per day, but you get a +4 bonus if they know the garden is illusory. Each day spent here adds a cumulative -1 to the save, resetting upon leaving. You can also persuade one of your friends to leave with you by using a diplomacy check contested by their will save. In 4th edition, the Garden of Delight is moved to the 6th layer of Hell, Malbolge, for some reason, I don't know. It also isn't fake or illusory in 4th edition, it's real. The idea being that having promises of relief from the torments of Hell makes the suffering even worse. Mentiri. In 2nd edition, Mentiri is a prison for mortals caught trying to sneak into Hell, as well as those captured in the Blood War. The inmates are diverse, and all they have in common is that they broke the laws of Hell one way or another. This prison wishes to not just punish them for the rest of their lives, but punish them for eternity by turning the prisoners to lawful evil in alignment, damning their souls to Hell forever. This is done through many methods. The most popular one is by polymorphing devils to sow discord among the prisoners and tempt them to commit evil acts. In 3rd edition, Mentiri is described as being a prison deep beneath Dis at the terminus of a confusing labyrinth, run by bone devils and staffed by bearded devils and spine devils. Mentiri has 2 wings in 3rd edition. The Bastille of Flesh serves the same purpose as 2nd edition. It's where mortals who broke the law are sent and corrupted into lawful evil alignment, so they're damned to hell. In 3rd edition, they do this by forcing them to compete with one another to survive, so they must commit horrific acts or suck up to the guards. Once corrupted to lawful evil, they are then executed and their souls appear on the shelves of Despawn. The 2nd wing, the Bastille of Souls, is composed of warehouses filled with the soul shells of individuals who were not lawful evil when they died, but ended up in hell anyways. Some were captured in raids to other planes, some died in Beator and somehow had their soul trapped here, etc. Because they do not belong here, Dispater can't turn them into devils or harness their divine energy, so he holds them for ransom or exchange, usually convincing loved ones of the trapped souls to sign Faustian pacts to release them. 4th edition has very little information on Mentiri and just describes it as a prison underneath Dis where prisoners of all kinds are held. The School of Pain. The School of Pain is where the Kokrakons go to learn how to become experts in torture. There are rumors that mortals have made deals to go to school here and attend lessons in diabolical torment. The School of Pain is located underneath the Knoll of Blades. Now, what exactly is the Knoll of Blades and where is it located? Well, I could not find that answer. I scoured every source book that discusses the School of Pain or the Kokrakons, and all I could find is what I just told you. I can't find any other information about it. Now, a knoll is a small round hill, so I would assume that it is located in the plains outside of the city and not within the city itself. I also like to think that since it's called the Knoll of Blades, instead of a grassy knoll consisting of blades of grass, it's just blades, just sharpened iron that sticks out of the ground and makes it difficult to maneuver, and there's probably a very specific path you have to follow to find the entrance. And then the School of Pain is an underground structure built underneath it, but like I said, there's no official description. This is just homebrew at this point. The last location is the Fetters. Now, the Fetters is something that 4th edition added, and as far as I can tell, it only exists within 4th edition lore. And it's basically a city district where mostly non-devils, planar travelers, merchants, etc. live and trade. The Fetters is a sprawling slum with shrines to dark deities and where gangs of vicious thieves fight for control. And that is the lore of Dis, the second layer of Hell, and all of the differences in lore between all 5 editions of Dungeons & Dragons. I hope you enjoyed this video, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more Dungeons & Dragons lore through the editions.